Acting, the most noble profession known to man, where real people pretend to be different real people who are doing real things and having real emotions, but in completely fictitious and often absurd situations. Sometimes they do it night after night on a stage in front of other real people who only watch, but imagine themselves as somehow actually doing those things they are watching as well. And sometimes the real people doing these unreal things record what they are doing, so the real people who watch or listen can do so whenever they would like to, as often as they would like to, and at their leisure. But how do they do it? How does an actor create the miracles that bring so much joy and laughter and light unto the world? For most, it is a mystery, including for the actors themselves. For others, who cares? Don't bother me, I'm busy. But for a choice few, actors, we get training. Okay, that's enough of that. In this episode, Jay and I talk about some of the basics of training methods for actors, where and how they started, mostly in Eastern Europe and Russia, the methodologists, creators, practitioners, and students, and how these methods have shaped and evolved our experience with performance today. Now, not all actors are followers of a methodology, but many are at least exposed to traditional method acting techniques, and of course, it takes more than talent to be a professional. You need to be trained in the craft as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is your primer lesson to method acting. Jay's going to do the intro in 3, 2, 1.
Hello. Welcome to the Offstage Acting Bonusode. We got Todd Kramer
In the house.
In his house, and Jay Reum also in his house.
We're in the house.
Yes, in the house. Welcome to Offstage Acting,
the podcast. Very well done. That was Jay's first attempt at an intro.
Oh my gosh, my heart's beating so fast.
Because he knows we don't go back. So you get a little round of applause for that. We don't go back, so whatever it was. And it is.
So
well done.
Don't quack up, Jay.
Well done. So today we're doing a Bonusode. Welcome, everybody. I hope you enjoy our Bonusode today. We've been giving you a lot of guests, great guests, and we decided enough with the great guests. We want
great guests. We hate them.
We hate.
No, we don't.
We don't hate them, but we
respectfully decline their presence today.
Today, thank you. Yeah, that's the right way. We want the audiences to suffer through with just us.
Just us.
Just
that's
us
right.
on this one. Well, what's the Bonusode about, Jay?
We're talking in this Bonusode today about acting techniques.
Are there techniques to acting?
Lo and behold, there certainly are. Actually, there's quite a bit of them. Todd was asking me yesterday about what we should talk about in this Bonusode, and I was like, I feel like a lot of people listening have gone to acting school or thinking about going to acting school. I feel like acting techniques is a solid subject, and I didn't realize it was as deep as it is.
Yeah, it's one that we need to talk about as well. I think a long time coming, in terms of like actually getting into the nuts and bolts of what an actor does as opposed to the business stuff. We talk a lot about the business and the lifestyle and things like that, but here, without actually training you in technique, we can discuss it as a background and introduce it to, like you said, aspiring actors and even actors and others will find this interesting. I think even people that don't have anything to do with acting or the entertainment industry will be interested to know that their favorite actors have usually studied with a famous teacher who has their own technique and style, and that's what you're watching on screen or on stage.
Mm-hmm.
That style.
And a lot of people don't just like go on and just like, randomly do things. They actually like have a process.
Most people don't do it like Jay and I, who just Jay. I have a feeling for Jay that this is always
he just screams into the void.
Yeah, this is my opinion of you. Like you get on and you just go, "I'm Jay."
Actually, that's
That's pretty much it,
That's
right?
that's solidly accurate. Not always, but like
I think I was
that's
in a session
unfortunately
with you
accurate.
once in an ADR, and you were like, "What did you say? Don't get me. Oh, don't ask me to do things. Don't get me started. I will be Jay," or something like that. And I thought it's such a millennial thing to say.
Excuse me?
Such a
Wait,
Jay.
I think I did say that.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like it's your fault for asking me the question. Like if you're gonna ask me to do something, I'm gonna do it.
yeah.
But
They had you get up and do something, and you went for it in a way that was really like, wow, way over the top, not appropriate for ADR session, which is
thanks, Todd.
this more subtle. And you kind of looked around and you went, "Hey, you asked for Jay, you got Jay."
Yay. This is embarrassing. This is
No, it's okay.
embarrassing.
I think
It's true.
listen,
It's I would do that.
yeah, and I know that that's but um, although sometimes that's great, especially maybe I don't know stand up. There's times for it, but there's other times when a good solid. Why do you think? Why? What do you think a good solid acting technique does for an actor? If you were to
Well,
talk
actually,
about
this
it.
is such a good question. I was just thinking about like why do people do techniques, you
Mm,
know?
mm-hmm.
Like 20 minutes ago I was thinking about this. And that honestly, like the reason people do techniques is so that when they don't know what to do, what do you do?
Right.
Um,
Okay.
because yeah, because oftentimes we have impulses, we have instincts, right? Like we're artists, we're creatives, we have ideas, but sometimes we don't. Or like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't know how to do something successfully. And so that's where a technique helps you to like do the thing that maybe you're not inherently able to
Mm-hmm.
do, which no one is able to do everything. That's just the way the world works.
Yeah, I mean, so studying a technique grounds an actor. You may have a lot of talent, and hopefully you do if you're going to acting school. You may have instinct as well, which is a requirement. Intellect, I think, is also a big requirement, meaning like an emotional intellect,
Mm,
an empathy, an ability to sort of witness and recognize and understand and repeat or
mm,
somehow mimic human behavior in
yeah,
a natural way. Um, and all those things are great. Now, you're young, you're inexperienced with life, you're not confident, you haven't worked with others before, you're not familiar, comfortable working in an ensemble.
yeah,
Um, you've not worked scripted with a variety of different styles of you know, script and written word. And you
gosh, you're
and
scaring me.
I see you're like,
I'm
is
like,
that? Are
wow,
you wiping away a tear?
I'm wiping away. Yeah,
Or is that sweat?
I'm wiping away. Yeah, no, I'm like, I'm massaging my temples as the stress
Yeah.
is kicking in, as everything you're saying now becomes true in my fake world.
Right. Right. This is good stuff. This is your education now. You represent the masses here, I think, in a
Oh
sense,
God.
Jay. Yeah, but if somebody's going to chuck Shakespeare at you, or David Mamet, or some other piece of work, or one of the Russian greats, something,
Yeah,
and
and
yeah,
yes, exactly. And also like because directors and other people use language, like different techniques is like a language where you can like come together,
mm-hmm,
right? Where you and the director, you and other actors, you can communicate on the same page.
yeah,
Exactly as you're saying, with whatever, whether it's Shakespeare, whether it's whatever author, whatever writer.
yeah, yeah, and you need to connect to that author in a sense that's you know that it is of that author's voice. Yeah,
Yes,
and
and the director's vision.
correct. Yeah. So um, overall, technique is vital to an actor. Now, your technique is individual to you. I think each, even if you have studied with one of the greats or you are come out of a school, a
Mhm.
specific school of technique,
Yeah.
you still sort of evolve and adapt that to suit you and your style and things like that. So it's not always vital that you
Hmm.
just stick to that technique. But I think, yeah, it gives an actor a point of reference and a foundation and a place to start and maybe a way of opening yourself up and becoming vulnerable or
Mm,
opening
yeah.
yourself and developing those skills, listening and reacting. Um, those are the kind of skills that an actor needs, natural.
Yeah.
So I went to university and I have a classical theater education. And when I say classical, I mean traditional. So we studied
Like, did
all
you
the,
do movement and speech and
yeah,
dialects and
and studied all the history and all the greats and every, Greek theater,
oh, you
uh,
even did Greek theater?
Russian
That is
theater.
old.
Yeah.
Almost as
Well,
old as me.
we didn't perform Greek theater, but we studied it. It was
Yeah,
academic
yeah.
in a lot of ways. So it wasn't just as opposed to a drama school, which is you're training just to be an actor. I have a degree in theater arts,
Oh, so you
so
have
it's
like
complete. Yeah, it's a complete academic degree.
oh, so you didn't go to a conservatory, a conservatory. You
No, I
went
went to
to
university.
university.
Yeah, I have a
Did you get a
bachelor's.
master's? You didn't get a master's, did you?
I have a master's in writing, which is
Oh my
separate.
God. How did I not know this?
There's a lot about me you don't know. I'm
Yeah, I forget about that. I just assume I know everything at this point.
a
You said it 20 times. Okay.
Yeah, no, it takes a while to sink in. Um, but anyway, no, my master's degree is in creative
It's in
nonfiction writing.
writing.
Hmm.
How interesting. I bet you're
Yeah,
great at it.
I'm pretty good. Yeah, but not as good as AI. Um, that's
Uh-huh.
another subject.
All right.
Uh,
Wow.
no, it
Hello,
comes in
everyone.
handy. It does come in handy
Welcome to
though.
our bonusode on techniques. Let's talk about AI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
AI. What's AI? It's gonna take over.
Oh God, that is a okay. Never mind. We're
No,
not
there's some
talking about
great
that.
stories. There's some great AI stories out there. But yeah, writing does come in handy. But no, my bachelor's is in Bachelor of Arts in Theater Arts.
Okay.
So I did have to study all that. Of course, it was eons ago now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it was like before the internet. So I don't
Uh,
even know. Um,
yeah,
I don't
gosh.
remember a lot of it.
Before the internet, I'm say jokingly, but actually that would be a very different. I only went to school with the internet, so wow.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah, it's crazy. It's a
Alrighty.
whole different world. We did have some computer lab, and internet was like coming. They had to go down to the library into the basement, and they were like on there, bleep 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 bleep,
Yeah,
logging
yeah,
on, deep burp burp,
yeah.
and you're like, you've got mail. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
it was
That
actually intranet, I think, as well. That was, and I was like,
oh,
what was that? And it was literally other universities. It was the intranet back
okay.
then, even, yeah. But
So
I digress.
what techniques did you okay, wait.
So,
I want to hear about what did you practice as opposed to like what did you like,
oh, you're cutting out.
like versus oh, cutting out, fantastic.
No, I got.
Practice versus
Okay, so do you know
research.
the methods start essentially? Do you know where?
I know where the method started from. Because I know New York City. It was Stella Adler, Lee Strasberg, and I believe it's Meisner. Maybe there's like of the big three. If
Hmm.
I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So, but going back to even okay.
and then
Yeah.
before that, Stanislavski,
Yeah.
which is in Russia, which is probably the main one. Like,
It's
and then
all
before that, not
starts in
sure.
yeah. It all starts in the Russian theater with Stanislavski essentially in like the early 1900s, late 1800s. Konstantin Stanislavski
Hmm.
and his students then. So Stanislavski was the co-founder of the Moscow Arts Theater,
Hmm.
and this is at a time theater in Eastern Europe, I can attest, and particularly Russia, was huge, um, pre-Soviet,
Hmm.
right? Um, and so Stanislavski was an actor and created this kind of technique that revolutionized basically acting in general. I think before that it was more oratory, more positioned,
Yes. He
and not
wrote An Actor
natural,
Prepares, which is like
right? That's a
the the main one, the big book, the one
that's a
everyone reads.
yeah, that's the one every student of acting sort of carries around with them. Well,
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
ones, yeah. An actor prepares, that's right. And it has to do with an actor being finding your objective and your super objective, right?
Mhm.
So in every scene with every actually nuanced word that you utter and everything that you every word of dialogue that is exchanged, the characters are going for something, right? So that's part of it. Like, what's your objective? What's your super objective?
Yeah, and he was all about like, it's called an actor prepares because his whole thing was about unlocking the unconscious self. Yeah, and how about
Mm-hmm.
you do all the work that you need to, right? You do all these objective works, you play with the magic what ifs, you know where you are,
Right.
so that by at some point you get to a place where like your unconscious self, your inner great actor can just do it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
be its free self. Yeah, because our unconscious self is 90% of us, so it's the part of us that knows
Yeah.
that our conscious doesn't.
Yeah. What's the magical if? Talk about that.
So in my training at Circle in the Square in New York City, we like Stanislavski was like in Russian and Chekhov, the playwright Chekhov,
Yeah.
um, was like the thing, and so the magic if when I read An Actor Prepares, I really loved it because it's like if you say to yourself what if, right, you go like what if this, what if that, like all of a sudden if you just say what if, like your body really activates into like
Mm.
what if the house is on fire, all of a sudden like your brain is or your body is like quack,
Right.
what if the house, right, like as opposed to like obsessing over something, you literally just say what if, right, it's a very
Mm.
like what if, the magic if, and if you play with this if, you realize that like you get activated if you
Yeah.
just use this word. And so that always stuck with me,
Mm-hmm.
just saying what if.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the way it translates into a scene is, what if, let's say I'm in a scene with I don't know, my wife, and she
Yep.
wants to get a divorce. So, what if I was about to get divorced,
Mm,
right?
there you go. I'm now feel that made my heart just go like, oh
Right.
God.
So you feel that now, channel that sensation, and then some of it morphed into. So then from Stanislavski, essentially, there's the students and things, and we'll talk about that. But
Mm,
essentially, the students took that kind of idea and ran with it. But even further, going into then, so like Uta Hagen, we're going to talk about her and
hmm.
all of them. But
Yes.
that would go even further. If you never had the experience of being divorced, what can you kind of parallelly attribute to that sensation? What's similar? Maybe
We're
you're
getting into method territory when you're
now
talking
we're
about
well. It's all
this.
method. Yeah, I mean this is all method now. Everything else is fringe if it's not method. It's really just
Hmm.
fringe stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's all method. Um, Other than Viola Spolin, who we're going to talk about as well, which is
Well, and I
the one
know.
I'm more attracted to. But just going back is, so if I'm
Mhm.
not if I've never been divorced, I'm a 19-year-old kid or whatever. But maybe my parents are split up, and I remember when my mother and father moved
Yes.
out, and I can go, okay, it's not happening to me, but I have that feeling, or I lost
Or,
something precious, right?
or I
Or
don't talk to this friend
a
anymore.
best
Like that.
friend that doesn't like me, or we stop being friends, or a girlfriend, so
Yeah.
um,
A breakup. Perfect. Yeah.
something, yeah, something that you have to sort of you substitute one for the other, but that brings you into this emotional state, that then you can attribute and play that as if it was actually happening to you. It gets
Hmm.
kind of intense after a while. But
Yeah.
okay, so
And then, well, and I just to bring it back, like this
yeah,
is as we're talking about acting, I think it's important to like have listeners and viewers know that like method, like I feel like maybe we should address to people like what most people think method acting is,
what is
right?
that?
Because there's a whole like I don't know if controversy is the right word, but
Yeah,
um there's a whole mindset
there's
about what method
two.
acting is,
Yeah, there's
and which is not actually true. You know, method
there's
acting, most people
yeah.
think, yeah, most people think method acting is like, I'm pretty sure, sorry, Jared, if you listen to this podcast,
Who's that?
but
Your
it is
friend?
known that one time Jared Leto, right, in
Oh,
I think Suicide Squad,
yeah.
again, this could be total BS, but I've heard this, and this is like an example of what method acting is. Like sent one of his co-actors like a dead squirrel or
Oh,
something really gross
to
because
upset
that's
them,
like what the Joker would do,
right?
right? Like he's doing something, or like
Right.
the method of like someone else. Now I'm not talking about Jared Leto. Someone else being like, oh, like I don't know, I'm playing a heroin addict. Oh, I need to do heroin to know what
Yeah.
it's like to be a heroin addict. No, that's like people think of that as what method acting is that you have to like do the thing that your character does.
Right.
But traditionally, method acting is not that actually at all. It's using your own experiences to like connect those together, because you shouldn't do heroin and you shouldn't send your co-actors like dead animals in the mail because that's what your character would do.
Right. Well, and yeah, that's interesting because there's the line between when you're in the theater or on the set and you're in
There it
costume
is.
and in character and holding the character and kind of keeping and trying to find
There it is.
ways, and then living like your life like a crazy person for 6 months or a year in the body of somebody. I mean,
But
Jim
people
Carrey, when
do.
he did Man on the
Jim Carrey,
Moon,
yes.
and yeah, he just insisted everybody called him
Whatever the guy's name was.
no, he's a great. He's one of my favorites, and now I've lost it. But um, uh, yeah,
Man on the Moon, Jim Carrey.
yeah,
I'm just looking it up for you.
and just
Kaufman.
Kaufman, Andy Kaufman,
Yeah.
insisting everybody calls him Andy, and that he don't, then he acts like Andy Kaufman the whole time, and it's like, well, I don't know. There's a
Mm.
question there. There's two schools of thought. Some of them, some say, look, there's no other way, and you just embody the character, full stop, and you go for it.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're doing a real live person that has a history and this, then maybe there's something to it, But others, sometimes it's necessary as well. Robert De Niro in Raging Bull played a boxer. I don't know if you've ever seen a Scorsese film. It's a classic. It's
I
a
very
great
much
film.
know of it. Yeah.
You better go out and
You
watch that next movie on your list. So De Niro is a method actor. We'll talk about that. He's where he studied and things, but he studied with a teacher, a student of Strasbourg. So,
mm,
but for the role, the boxer has to lose a lot of weight. He's a welterweight champion, I think, or a middleweight. Um,
De
and
Niro,
De
he had
Niro,
to lose weight.
he had to drop weight in order to fit that profile. I think he dropped, I don't know, 30 pounds, 35 pounds or something, got real
Oh, wow.
lean to play the boxing part. And then in the movie, it flashes forward to after he becomes the champ. It's based on a true story,
Mm.
about a real boxer called the Raging Bull. I forgot the guy's name. My head is beep, beep. Um, but then he put on 60 pounds during
Oh
the
my
course of the
gosh.
making the film, right? So then he's a big fatso at the end of it, who's was the champ, and that's the sort of. But the imagery of that is gorgeous, and it ends up being a great
Hmm.
film and things. And you think, well, okay, I guess in those days they didn't really have the fat suit or the CGI. Today they can
Yeah.
recreate something like that. You wouldn't have to go through all that. Did he do it to embody the character? Yeah, partially. But did he do it also because it was what was called for? Yes, partially. I don't know. You'd have to
Well,
ask
yeah,
Bobby
and
D.
also if this is what people are doing and they put on these great performances, like, I mean, you're bringing something up of like, who are we to say that what you're doing is wrong if that's what they did and it created something really good,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. Joe LaMotta, that's the name of the boxer, um, and it was a true story. Um, and maybe the results speak for themselves. So there's a lot of sort of famous. Well, so for example, I'll tell you the practitioners of so one of the students of Stanislavski was
Hmm.
Stella Adler,
Stella Adler.
right? And she then was like Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro, and I think Mark Ruffalo studied with her technique,
Wow.
Benicio del Toro. So some great actors. Um, and the Stella Adler Academies are around. I think
Yeah.
they must still be around. You've seen them. You heard of them.
Yeah, in New York City, I worked with many people who went to Stella
Stella
Adler.
Adler, right?
Very well known, very
Yeah,
known. Yeah.
and that's pure method. Like, and she was big in New York.
So do you know the difference? So like one of my teachers at Circle was also a student of Lee Strasberg, and like
Mm-hmm.
the specific thing about Strasberg technique is about using sense memory. Like
Yeah,
that's like boop, that's the stamp. of
Right.
Strasbourg, what's like the stamp of Stella Adler?
Similar,
You know?
but maybe a little bit more even heightened, I think.
Okay.
I've studied a bit of the Stella Adler. Um, so
Heightened in like
that you yeah that you use more
in a personal
vision.
sense?
Yeah, that you use more of your imagination, more to envision it.
Hmm.
You create kind of metaphors for what you're
Hmm.
doing, backstory. Um,
Okay.
yeah, she was quite demanding of her students. Apparently, really
Oh,
pushed them. So push them to limits, so that you would probably have. I don't know. I can imagine that you'd have breakdowns. You make yourself vulnerable,
yeah.
and you really. So that's why you see those celebrity or famous students of hers or practitioners of Stella Adler technique. They are, if you watch them in movies, they have a sort of more, I don't know, I wouldn't even know how to put it. It's just, it's
Hmm.
visible
Hmm.
um, that it's a little bit more heightened. Um,
When I
and
know a lot of these
yeah,
techniques are very personal, like that's kind of what makes
yeah,
them like
yeah.
that's kind of like a common thread is that like they're very, very personal. Um, yeah.
Personal to the actor, you mean, or
Yes, yeah, personal. Yeah,
or to the
exactly, to
teacher?
the actor. Personal to the actor where you really take your
Yeah,
personal life, your personal experience, right? Like it's very much about the actor and like personal individual. Um
yeah. I mean,
yeah, which
so take one of the greatest actors of all time, as people say, or often Marlon Brando.
Brando.
Right,
Yeah.
he was Stella Adler,
Yeah.
and he. I mean, there's something about that technique that just got to a passionate, put the actors can put the actor in a passionate level, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, a very tender place, um, which is personal. So if you're able to tap into that, great. I think that's what the method is meant to do ultimately, is to get people into
Yes.
these tender places that society isn't going to do. Um,
Yeah.
Society is built on competition and school and everything else. It's all
And barriers.
competitive. Well, yeah, a lot of barriers, but you think about the way the
Mm.
educational system is in general. So for young people, children being educated, all they have in their life is competition, and meaning competition that I cannot show to anyone else that I am vulnerable or weak or need help in any way, because then I will be attacked, vilified. I'll be set back. Others
Mm.
won't show those vulnerabilities and they'll move ahead, et cetera, et cetera. So then we get on stage. Well, that doesn't work for acting. Competition, as you see out in the real world, doesn't work for the actor. That's why the actor, I think, is very much separate from the rest of society, because
Mm.
we work on cooperation. We work on ensemble, meaning
Well, we
group.
should. We should.
Well,
That's
if you're
not always
good,
the case.
no, I'm saying a good actor is someone that knows their craft and is working and
I
trained.
I feel
Um,
like that's very British. I don't know about you, but I feel like because I studied both in New York City and in London,
hmm,
I think one of the biggest things I've noticed is like the community at UK, it seems much more ensemble,
hmm.
and like less ego.
Oh, there's
And
definitely ego. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there is, but like I really felt like the training in the States is very much about personal me, right? Like
Mm, yeah,
bringing
you're
the
probably right.
personal out. And
Mm,
like in London, it's more about like serving the project, right? It's a bit more detached. Like, what do you need
right,
to do in order to like make the thing successful and do what you have to do so
right.
that the project works,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
right?
that's why I think British
It's
actors
just personal.
are more in higher demand and often absorbed into the U.S.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, and this is
film
just,
and television industry.
one
But
perspective.
it's not just UK. Anywhere that there is a theater culture, and has been, like, there was a big one in Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, where I still live, as you know, and
Mhm.
Poland has a large theater. Eastern Europe, Vienna, Austria. Um,
Hmm.
Hungary has a large theatrical. Russia, certainly Moscow. I mean, a lot of the Eastern European countries, and other places where theater prevails, or there's a big theater culture, those actors, I'm talking, when I say these things, I mean like strictly craft, strictly pure acting. And maybe I'm even hearkening back to a time before the big Hollywood machine started rolling out mega hits.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not about acting anymore. It's just about how many, what your abs look like, or, you know, how many, can you kick a punch over your head? And do you look good running with a gun? I don't know. But going back to some like Brando's time, and those original stage productions, the 60s in New York, that in essence, you are meant to be cooperative. You cannot have
Mm-hmm.
theater. You cannot have good theater. You cannot have a show if everybody's on that stage trying to show off their
No,
skill, right? Or what they've
no.
got. And everybody's trying to be, you can't hide on stage. That defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
So, right? So you get on stage, you're vulnerable, you open yourself up, and this is what makes dynamic, engaging, thrilling theater.
Yeah.
So how does an actor get there? Now, whether or not today that exists, I don't know. Whether or not people are writing those plays or producing those plays, those kinds of pieces of work. I think we see some films where that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, there's theater that pops up here and there. A lot of it's musical stuff and
Yeah.
whatever gets ticket sales. But if we're just talking about pure like traditional theater and traditional acting, um, it's a cooperative art
Yeah.
by definition.
100%.
And that's where this method comes in, which is just designed to get you to tap into something about yourself that
Yeah.
normal society would never, and nobody in society would ever tap into.
Bam. So, do
So,
you have a technique? Do you have one that you use? Like
so
that?
I would call my technique, and maybe others. I think it's others would too, if they do a blended technique.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like a fine wine, a fine blend.
Hmm.
Are you like a Zinfandel and Sauv?
I'm
And
like
okay,
a
I'm
I'm
not.
like
I'm
a
not
I'm
gonna.
like a Scottish whiskey,
Oh, okay.
not a single malt. Me, I'm more of a blended.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, shaken, not stirred. Um,
Scottish
whatever that.
whiskey. Okay, that's sexy. Great.
I thought, yeah, and if I say it like that,
Yeah.
I'm a blended
Confessed, man.
Scottish whiskey. Um,
I'll buy that. Wow.
12. I'm at least
Whew.
24 years old, aged in a cask, a cherry wood cask. Okay, so no, blended,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
meaning that I familiarized myself. I studied all the techniques in a sense. I tried them all out. I think I really have tried them all out as well. Taken classes and was exposed to them. Let's say, for sure. Um, and then sort of just you take certain bits here and there. Now, I'm also more of the school, like you were talking about before, of the ones that reject method.
Mm-hmm.
That's my way. Then there are some like Malkovich, Liam Neeson, Anthony Hopkins. It's a kind of a long list of actors who just can't stand method. And I don't know, you can, the takeaway on that is whatever you want. Those are great actors, I think, too. There is this kind of a like, just turn up and do the job and
Yeah.
stop
Can
with
you
all the
just can you
horse
just do it?
hockey.
Just
Yeah, it's just go and do your job and don't try to, right? So I think method has its place, and learning a technique certainly has its place. It's
yeah.
almost like you take it, you learn it, you craft it, you study it, you do it and then you chuck it out the window and
And if something
never
stays,
look
then
back.
it's better.
Yeah, you just ditch all that later, because maybe it was just in the getting there that you needed to learn a
Hmm.
technique. Now you're there, you don't need it anymore. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? It's
Yeah,
like
makes sense to me.
yeah, it's like you had to learn how to um, skydive in order to jump out of the plane and land on the ground safely. But you're never
Yeah.
going to do that again. So you don't ever need to think about pulling the parachute again. You're on the ground safely. You don't need to go back and get that training anymore. I don't know. That's a dumb analogy, probably.
No, I was feeling you.
Think of a better
Sometimes it's
one.
like the with cooking, I guess, like sometimes you need to learn how to cut a certain way. And then once so that you don't cut yourself. And then
Mm.
at a certain point, once you've been cooking long enough, like you don't need to do this. You don't need the training wheels, quote unquote, anymore. But
Well,
you've,
that's a different. That's interesting too. You're not thinking about it, in other words. So that's just you're just saying it's automatic. You cut.
yeah, like you do it. And then like, it has a purpose, right? It's
Hmm.
getting you to a place of like, you are comfortable with something, right? Like
Yeah.
training wheels, right? Like
Training wheels. That's a
you
good
don't
one. Yeah.
need the training wheels anymore.
No, they
They're
help to
not
get
there.
you up and get you where you are. You take the stabilizers, they're called in Britain. We call them stabilizers, but training wheels on a
Really?
bicycle. Yeah,
Oh,
stabilizers.
learn something new every day.
Well, I have little kids, so.
Oh, and they call them stabilizers because they're in the UK, of course.
Well, if you want to buy a bike with stabilizers, I think if you said training wheels, they would know, but it doesn't matter.
It would okay. Interesting. Great. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, that's the best analogy. Take the training wheels off. They got you to where you needed to go, but now you can ride the bike. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a school of thought there, and maybe some of these that are, the internet will tell you so and so is a practitioner of this and that, but they themselves might say, well, no, I studied with that school for years, but I don't still use that as a crutch.
Well, yeah. And sometimes you do different things for like, for you do different things differently. Like I know I just
Right.
did a gig where like I both was like in the story, but I also was narrating my thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so on all the sections that I was the narrator, I would like underline and like I would do text work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that I would like know what I was saying. But then for the part that I was in the scene, I would just listen, right? I would just do the scene. And I very specifically would be like, okay, this is the narration. This is where we're hitting the correct words that we need to so the story gets across. But
Right.
then in the scene, like I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to listen and react. Right. So
Right.
you can do different things for whatever the purpose is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's true. Yeah,
I mean,
different.
I do that.
Yeah, different productions require, or different parts require maybe a different kind of exercises.
Yeah, and
Christopher
like
Walken, Christopher Walken famously takes his scripts and removes all punctuation,
oh,
including
does he?
capitalization and everything out. And maybe that's why he has that kind of style where it's.
Does it work? I don't know. Oh, is that's why he
Well, it
talks the
works
way
for
he
him.
does.
Yeah, that's why he talks
That
like this. Um,
now that's why.
Christopher
Wow.
Walken.
Walking.
That's a terrible one.
Yo,
I could do a better one.
Christopher
I'd have to.
walking.
Christopher Walken. I don't know why I have to
Do
read a
that
script. Yeah,
without yeah.
we're not. Okay, we're not going to do our terrible
Yeah,
Christopher
we'll just
Walken
cut this we'll
impersonations.
cut this, everyone. We're so sorry.
Sorry. Apologies. That's terrible. I have to hear him a couple times, then I can do it. Anyway, but that's
Takes out
like it
punctuation. That's
takes out all the
crazy.
punctuation because that's for him an obstacle to his
To him,
his,
his mind,
to him
his
and his
yeah,
delivery, yeah, his
yeah.
style.
There you go.
So that's interesting. Anthony Hopkins famously sort of, I think, has no style in a sense, no method, no technique.
Hmm.
He lets the audience do the work, which I think is brilliant in a sense. So if there's
Interesting.
a scene where he's meant to be sad and it's clear, he just looks not into the camera, but if he's meant to just stare into space and be angry or maniacal or sad or contemplative or whatever the emotion is,
Hmm.
he does exactly this, which
Oh,
audiences can't see. He just
he just
stares.
does nothing, and then the audience is like,
Right.
"Oh, he must be sad."
Yeah.
He gives
Because
them no.
in all fairness, the music is saying he's sad. The script has said he's sad. The other characters have said it. They've
He
set it
doesn't need
all
to
up.
do anything.
He doesn't.
It's
So,
already done.
and it's done. And the audience looks at him and goes, and
Oh, he's
they
sad.
put, he's sad. If the
But
movie's
that's
doing its job, but I think that's brilliant in a sense
you know
because
what? Yeah.
what's the alternative? I sit there and like try to force a tear. I create some kind of method,
Yeah.
like, or
Good
I
for him.
think,
Yeah.
in his head, he's maybe running through some scenario of, he's thinking some thoughts but he's not doing anything. He'll say, I've heard him say, he just sits blankly,
Hmm.
and people get scared, or people go, oh my God, that's such a great, and so that's a technique
That's
though, isn't it?
so interesting.
Right.
That is. So interesting. I have not heard that story. All
So we
right.
talked about Stella Adler.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about, oh, well, now Strasberg, who's
Uh-huh.
another student of
Yeah.
Stanislavski.
Who
Lee,
did
yeah,
who did mainly sense memory. This was what my training in New York was with.
right.
And using we would use basically, maybe memories, or we like thought like smells, like literally you guys and Todd in class. We would honestly, at the beginning of
Okay.
class, we would sit in a chair. That's what we would do. We would sit in a chair,
Okay.
and we would just close our eyes, and we would think like the teacher would lead us through something. And we would just pay attention to our senses. Every once a
Uh
week,
huh.
once or twice a week, we would sit in a chair. And over the course of the whole year, soon it was just about like thinking, right? Having a memory,
Yeah. Emotional
being
recall.
yeah, and being relaxed, right? It was all about relaxation. That
Mm-hmm.
was step one, really. All like your partner would maybe like massage you. Um
Okay.
and you would just sit in a chair, and then the teacher would like
Sounds
lead.
awesome.
Sounds
Relaxing.
awesome. Oh yeah.
You
Uh,
sure this is why people hate actors, by the way? They're like, what? How much money do you pay to go to this school? To
no, and
sit
that's
in
what
a
we did.
chair and be
We sat in a chair
massaged?
and get massaged. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. We would. And
Yeah.
I remember, well, and one thing like, and we would go through different we'd smells, we'd go through all the senses. We would
Smells.
have
Like she
like
would
a
bring smells into the class and put them under your
no,
nose?
she would go
Oh,
through
talk about the scent.
memories,
Ah.
and we
What
would
did
have
it
a
smell like? What
focus
did
a
the
day
grass?
about
Yeah.
smell.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And she'd be, it's like you're not trying to like conjure it. You're not
Right.
trying to make it happen. We're just having a memory, and you're
Okay.
seeing what you smell, right?
Right.
And like listen, sometimes it's very powerful. We had an alcohol day, right? Where I mean substance day, where it was just like
Wow.
we would practice with like like pretend substances, right? And pretend to get drunk.
Okay.
And so I remember one time I was sitting relaxed in that chair, having a grand old time in the basement of Circle in the Square Theater School. And I had this memory. I imagined like a cork being popped. And I
Mm-hmm.
swear to you, I could smell like the wine. I could
Okay.
feel it in my
Yeah.
nostrils. And like I guess my face just got all red, and I like my body was reacting and was doing things, and I didn't have to do anything. All I was doing was
Mm-hmm.
smelling that fake wine. So that's to me, that's Lee Strasberg.
Completely believable because I think, if you understand how the brain works, um, psychology and the synapses firing and memory and stuff, it's there. So definitely recalling memory and building the whole image for yourself. This is critical for an actor, don't you think?
Yeah, well, we spent a year, and we spent a year doing it.
Right.
Like, and then the second, which is an insane amount of time. The second year we did animal work, which is another concept, which was very fun.
Okay.
But it's all about, but it was about
Embodying. Yeah.
yeah, and using your imagination. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Strasberg was maybe most about like what you do actually know, like your actual memories, right? We'd go
Yeah.
through a memory,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
would ask like, what does the ground feel like under your feet, exactly as you're
Yeah.
saying? Like, do you hear anything? Do
Yeah.
you like, and you would discover through doing this like what things activated you, or like what made you like, what do you really remember? And you're kind of like going through your past, and you're going through your memories, and you're finding the things that are really strong.
So when do you think that comes in handy for an actor, a working actor, something like that?
I
When is that useful?
Um, I think it could be very useful, and she would also do this, by the way, when students were in, like, would you'd get activated, she would say, eyes up, the camera is up here." She would
Mhm.
be like, look at
Okay.
like she
Yeah.
would like people would get in, and she'd be like, "Jay, like the camera, like I'm the camera." And she would just be like, "Just remember, like, have your head
Yeah.
right to like
Mm-hmm.
so that we would
Get
get
you
into like
get
the
you
zone."
used to understanding, yeah, that
But also there's the
you're
other
not on
side
your
of it.
own, that this is a
Yes.
performance, yeah, and there's
Yeah, and
an
so
audience, yeah.
I think that actually that specific part makes it useful because it's about being in a different state.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're also like looking at a camera, right?
Yeah.
How is it useful in the professional world? Um, Again, I think it's how I say earlier. It's most useful if you don't know what to do. If like there's something, if you're not already activated. I find if I'm in a performance and I'm already like if I'm sometimes like these sense memory things like happen
Mm-hmm.
already. They're already happening, and it's a sign that I'm activated, and it's just a
Yeah.
sign that things are going well.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm doing. It's just a symptom of
Right.
I'm there.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
you just did a drama, an audio drama, right? And in
yeah,
that circumstance, I assume you probably had a few occasions in there that you had to utilize that skill,
yeah. Yeah, and
if you thought
sometimes
about
it
it.
helps, like, and you do, because it also puts, like, if you imagine yourself in a
Hmm.
big wide field,
Yeah.
and you need to talk to the person across from you, you're
Hmm.
going to throw your voice and actually be like believable that you're talking to a person across a field, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, if you're imagining yourself and you feel yourself enclosed in a small room, you're not going to scream because they can hear you,
Yeah.
right? Like, these things, you're really bringing something up. Like, I guess maybe this technique is helpful and I'm not realizing it because it's kind of there,
Very.
and I'm not thinking about it, right? Like, it's
Well, when
just
you said the
something.
method, and you were talking about the method. Now that's Strasbourg.
Yes,
Strasbourg is the method essentially.
he
He,
is. That's what I learned.
yeah, and others have a method, but his is the. It's kind of called the method, and I like Strasbourg a lot. Um, and when you see him perform, he's so natural. It's like, wow, you can't believe it. Now he plays his little kind of similar type of himself. You seen The Godfather?
Mm-mm. Is Lee
Um,
Strasberg is in the no? What?
yeah,
I thought
yeah.
he was really old.
Well, The Godfather's really old. Godfather Part Two. It's from 1974. So
Oh, I
uh,
guess he would have been alive. Wow. Okay. Well, great.
the scene where they're cutting up the he plays the big main mafia boss, and there's a scene in Godfather 2 where they're cutting up the cake. I'm just saying this out loud for you but mostly for audiences. So if they're interested to know who like Lee Strasberg is,
Yeah.
Godfather, great movie. Now that's Pacino, who was a student of Strasberg, and got
Hmm.
essentially not got him into the film, but like said perfect for the part. Um, and they're cutting up the cake of Cuba, and it's symbolic of all the mobsters who are going to take over Cuba and turn it all into one big like Las Vegas casino and stuff. So it's a great movie and a great scene. Watch that scene, and you'll see Strasberg and how he sort of handles himself as an
Hmm.
actor. Um, I think he's in his slippers. He's shuffling along. He's got a very clear delivery and you just believe the character completely. Um, and you'll see him in there's a lot of old movies and stuff that he was in. Now, like you said, laying in a field of wheat with the sun shining on you, and now, again, pure theater, pure cinematic. It's easier in a movie because you're in. They'll put you in a
Yes.
field, and they'll
You
on a
don't need
sunny
a method
day.
act. You're
Yeah,
there.
in a sense, you just kind of you just put yourself there, but think of yourself as being there not as an actor, but as the person in this world right now. But
Hmm.
for stage acting, of course, then it's very different. You might have some lights, some sounds, a few things, but it might just be a black box, and you're meant to lay down and put yourself there.
Yeah.
This is this is a tool that actors need to develop. And I'll tell you, I use it consistently in audiobook reading
Hmm.
and in voice work in general. Because voice work, certainly, you're in a box,
Yeah. You
there's
have
nobody else
to.
around. Yeah,
You have to communicate this because
right.
it's not actually happening. You
You're
have
not in a
to.
costume. You
No.
don't have any lights around. You don't have any set design. There's nothing. But it's a video game, and they say, okay, you're out here fighting a battle, or you're, having a romantic scene, or you're finding some magic jewel, or I'm reading Twain or some other book,
Yeah.
and you go, okay, who is this person? Where is he? What's the objective? What are we doing? And if you can imagine yourself there, the idea, in essence, folks, is that if you can imagine yourself in the place and you do it, the better you are at doing that, imagining yourself there, picturing yourself in that environment, and and having a certain kind of character that's in that environment, this persona in this environment, the better your acting will be, because you will react naturally, and you will react and perform just as a real person in that real situation would,
As if they were there.
as if they were there. And it's
The
natural.
magic
That's
if.
beautiful acting. The magic if. There it is. As if, what if, and there's the answer. And so Strasberg students are some of your favorite actors, probably, really.
Yeah, I think Strasberg. Anyway, exactly, and I think
And yeah,
method
so,
came from him.
and that's an example of another real actor who created a real method. Now but that's Alec Baldwin, Al Pacino, Ellen Burstyn, Paul Newman, James Dean, considered one of the greats. Marilyn Monroe studied with him. So a bunch of great names. Dustin Hoffman was a Strasberg guy. All those kind of characters came out of that school. Now the other one then was, we said Hagen, we said Stella Adler, we said Strasberg.
Oh, there's one other big one that I don't really know much about. I think you do. You're going to talk about Meisner, aren't you?
So Meisner, yeah, we're going to have to talk about Meisner. That's another completely, but that has nothing now to do with Stanislavski. So we're coming out of the Stanislavski kids.
Wow, and here I was thinking this was just a simple topic.
Yeah, we're going to make it a short one today, weren't we? But we can rattle on through this because I'm actually not a huge fan of Meisner.
Oh,
if I'm honest, yeah.
I don't know much about Meisner, so interesting.
Okay.
I just know like the back and forth, like
Yeah.
repeating.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I know.
I think as a tool, there's some value to it. People get
And
very
it's just like people repeat the same line, right? Like they just like
well.
repeat
We'll
the
get
same
into
line
that.
again.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
without scaring everybody. I want to preface everything before I talk about the actual
Gotcha.
the study. So the Meisner technique, yeah, as a tool, I think can be effective. I don't really consider it much of a technique. Now, there are, again, two schools of thought. Either if people are into Meisner, love it.
They do.
And that's all they want, and that's all they talk about, and they get a lot out of it. Those that hate it and don't like it really don't like it and reject.
You're of the second.
As an actor, I think it's ridiculous. For the most part, but
You're like, I respect others. That's a
but
good
I
for
respect,
you
yeah,
situation.
as a teacher of acting and the director of Offstage acting, I've got nothing against Meisner technique. I will never teach it. But let's talk about what it is, and then I'll talk about maybe why I don't have a lot of interest in that specific style. I'm trying to be very delicate. Can you tell?
Yeah, you're doing a great job. You're
good.
doing really good.
I'll tell you off camera what I really think.
Off stage, you'll tell me how it really is. Great.
Yeah. So he kind of went the opposite though. He sort of says like, don't be too emotionally obsessed or too emotionally intellectually obsessed with like a method, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't get too bogged down with all that stuff. Because then you start focusing on it. You get to and there's something to that, I think. An actor can get maybe just a little too lost, and it's too eggy, too hammy.
Too cerebral? Is that kind of what
yeah,
you're talking about?
yeah, and it's like this heightened sort of kind of character where you go, yeah, I guess it's interesting to watch, but it's not genuine. I don't know.
Okay.
So if you take all that and sort of break it all down, so he goes back and he wants you to break yourself down.
Oh God.
Yeah, a lot of bad habits and a lot of typical ways that you would react to situations. So he wants you, instead of focusing on on this,
I'm getting a sense of like.
Yeah, he goes for simplicity of instinct. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that comes in what you were talking about now, this repetitive. Have you taken Meisner?
No, I have never done a Meisner class.
All right, we'll do a Meisner for everybody right now, the audience, okay?
Okay, great. Let's go.
Here's an example of the Meisner technique. You take a sentence. Let's say, I'll say, I like your glasses.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, now, you can have a reaction, but you can't say anything other than repeating what I just said.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay.
And that's it. I just
I'll
have
make it
to
easier on you.
repeat
You
what
can
you said.
say, yeah, I'll say, I like your glasses, and you say, you like my glasses. Okay. And we just,
Okay.
okay, ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
I like your glasses.
You like my glasses.
I like your glasses.
You like my glasses.
I like your glasses.
You like my glasses.
It might help if you took your hand away from your face and actually got into this
I I
exercise a
I
little bit.
this
Take
is
your
where I
hand
am
away.
right now.
Take your hand away from your face and do it like a proper
Okay.
actor.
Uh-huh.
I like your glasses.
You like my glasses.
I like your glasses.
You like my glasses.
I like your glasses.
You like my glasses.
Okay, so you're failing miserably right now at Meisner, just
All
for
right,
the record.
great.
But well done. Let's give Jay a small clap for half-hearted
Uh-huh.
attempt at doing a Meisner class. How did you feel? How do you feel now?
I'm just being there. I'm
Yeah,
feeling
not really. You're not really being there. Actually, maybe Meisner
you
is
actually
effective.
don't know that.
Maybe you need some Meisner classes. So what's the idea?
The idea is to repeat the words after each other.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
This
trying
is
to
why.
figure out I'm trying to figure out with this idea,
Yeah.
Mr.
So what you
Kramer.
were
Like
more,
I'm
so
just there
this is
repeating.
exactly what Meisner does, and there is effectiveness for people, maybe people like you, actors like you, because what it does is it will get you out of thinking about what is this exercise we doing? What is Todd doing? I don't get it. What you were reacting to right there. You were saying, you like my glasses? And you kept saying the same thing. You like my glasses? Where I was trying to have an objective. I'm trying to get something out of you. I'm trying to express myself to you without the words of it, right? Without changing I'm not going to change the dialogue. I'm going to change my tone. I'm going to change my position. I'm going to change the pace at which I say it, right? I'm trying to get something out of you by saying this. And we're trying to get to some natural reactions.
Okay.
So maybe if it was like, I like your glasses. You like my glasses? I like your glasses. You like my glasses. So what are you saying in that? You're saying, okay, I get it. Or what do you want from me? Or, yeah, I don't know. And this is essentially what you can do. A whole class can be built around this. I find that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. We don't have to continue if you don't want
Okay.
to.
That's Meisner.
There it is.
I think I find that I've gotten into a couple of Meisner classes where I figured out that the person teaching didn't know what they were doing at all, but thought they did because all they had to request of their students was to stand in front of each other and repeat things over and over again. And the students are going, what are we doing? I don't get it. And the teacher's not really able to explain it because they don't know themselves. Because maybe they've taken Meisner, but they've never quite figured out what it is.
Sounds like you're a secret Meisner aficionado, is what it sounds like.
I
That
think
you're
there's.
like you secretly love it, and you're
Okay,
like
I'll tell you
everyone is
why.
wrong.
Do you know who David Mamet is?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Are you a fan of David Mamet?
If it's done well.
Yeah, okay.
I've
He
seen
writes in
it
a certain
done
style.
not well.
Yeah. So Mamet and William H. Macy, who's one of the main actors for all Mamet pieces, created a method called practical aesthetics, which is based a lot on Meisner technique and Stanislavski, but using Meisner stuff. So there's a cadence in a Mamet. Anybody that knows a Mamet play or you have seen a film,
rhythm.
there's a rhythm and a
for
cadence
sure.
and stuff, almost very similar to what we just did, where you will see the two and they will have an exchange of dialogue back and forth. You like my glasses. I like your glasses. You like my glasses. I like your glasses.
Oh my God.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm taking them off.
Take them off. It's terrible. Yeah. I hate your glasses.
And yeah, I do too. I now do too. And I can't see, but it's worth it.
You'll
So
never
you
wear them
never tell
again.
me that again.
Okay, so but this is great because you're having a real, genuine physical gut reaction to the Meisner technique, which I think is similar to the one I had, which is like, okay, if it was part of a larger, broader sort of work, then great. And it's effective, but it's sort of a one-trick pony also.
I mean,
Um,
I feel like is my reaction to the technique or is my reaction to someone telling me I don't get it when I don't even know what there is to get?
yeah.
That
Well,
that's
that's the
there it
definition
is.
of not getting it.
There you go.
Oh, you're upset
It's okay. I'm fine.
that you didn't get Meisner.
It's okay.
Well, maybe
It's
something
okay.
to look into.
No, it's fine.
Um, and the
Glasses
glasses
are
are
back
back
on.
on. Everybody,
I
there
can't
we go.
see. I cannot see without my glasses.
Okay, this wasn't meant to be an exercise in making Jay feel like crap.
No, he doesn't feel like crap. He's fine.
Okay,
But thank you.
okay. So maybe let's get off Meisner. But there are some practitioners of Meisner that I respect: Robert Duvall, Gregory Peck, Diane Keaton.
Hmm.
They went through the Meisner to some degree. I don't know how much they like live and breathe and die Meisner, but there is something to it. And if done effectively, perhaps Sanford Meisner himself was able to teach you directly, then you might have gotten something from it. I think there's a lot of people out there. Meisner comes up all the time. You've seen it.
Hmm.
Doing a Meisner class. Well, it's
Yeah,
the
I kind of
simplest
saw
class
that.
to do. You don't have to even, you don't have to give anybody a scene.
You just do these exercises.
Yeah, you just have them come in and here's your line. And then they're meant to yell it back and forth at each other for 10 minutes and discover something. And then they go, well, we don't get it. And then if they go, if your student says we don't get it, then you go, well, just keep working at it. It'll come. It's one of these like, ugh. And you're paying for this privilege.
That's such a mafia mentality of like,
Totally.
oh, you don't get it. You need to
Yeah.
pay us more money so that like you can start to
It's
get
almost
it
like
because we're
it's
telling
like
you
a
you don't get it.
cult to me. It's like,
Oh, there you go.
and this is where, yeah, well, you don't get it. Well, keep coming to class,
Keep
keep
coming to
paying,
class.
and it'll, eventually it'll
Stop
come
going
to
to your
you.
chiropractor. Come to Meisner
Right.
so that
Stop
you can
coming
get
to your
better. You suck.
psychologist. You don't get it. See, I could have had you in my class by now because now you're frustrated and you're willing to pay any money to just get that feeling away. And you come back
Absolutely
next
not.
week and I go, do you like my
Maybe I'll
glasses?
start using you know what? This is smart. Maybe we've cracked the Meisner technique. It's actually just about
It's a
getting
moneymaker.
people to feel like they're not good enough so that they come back and give you more money. This
If
is
you
good.
love Meisner, by the way, put your comments in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. Feel
Actually,
free.
yes, please.
Defend your
Defend.
craft. I don't know
Please
anybody
do.
that really defends Meisner, to be honest. There are those.
We will
Um,
listen. We will
it
love it.
just doesn't resonate with me personally. I don't see much to it. And there's other things there, but in terms of breaking people down and getting you to react naturally, maybe there's a certain type of personality, a certain type of temperament that is effective for.
Well, I have one kind of last technique that I feel like I see actually in like the professional world that I think we should talk about.
I'm ready to move
Um
on. Viola
and that
Spolin,
actually no, well, you talked about her. Who is she? This wasn't what I was going to say, but
improv.
yes, that is what I was going to say.
Thank you. See,
Wow.
I use my predicative,
Predictive text AI Todd
predicative.
Kramer.
No, but that I learned from acting. I was able
You
to
did.
channel using the Meisner technique. I was able to channel your next thought.
Good job.
Viola Spolin, yes. You want to move into improv. So there's the Viola Spolin technique. Now, I've saved the best for last because this is the one that I find the most beneficial to actors. Now, if you go back and recall our podcast with Mark Beltzman,
Hmm.
and by the time this podcast comes out, the Beltzman podcast will have been out.
Great episode,
Beltzman's
by the
coming
way.
to town. He's teaching improv for actors. It's a good time for me to put a plug in. So you can check that. You can check out Mark Beltzman, April 27th and 28th,
Oh, great.
Saturday and Sunday, weekend workshop. Go to offstageacting.com for more information on the Mark Beltzman. Now, Mark is coming to town. He's going to be teaching improv for actors. Now, Viola Spolin was a woman who, as far as I understand, early days in Chicago, a lot of immigrants, right, coming. She ran a theater at the time and was a bit of an actress, but also ran a kind of a school for children of immigrants, poor immigrants. Imagine, early 1900s.
Okay.
coming in, everybody with a different
Into the
language.
UK or into America or
America, Chicago.
okay, Chicago.
Sorry, did I not say Chicago? Chicago. I thought I said
Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah, Chicago. Um, so imagine kids from coming in from all over the world, not speaking English, don't have communication skills. So she started developing these games
Mhm.
in this school for children to connect and make relationships through, despite the language barrier and things. And those games were quite effective.
Okay.
She They were based on some acting stuff and some acting sort of training. Now her son, Paul Sills,
All
who
right.
was who grew up with that, all those games and things like that, he took all that to his theater. I forget the name of his theater troupe. I might look that up real quick.
Paul Sills.
Paul Sills. So he took that to his theater group and started using the same
Oh,
games.
Second City Improv.
No, not yet, not
The
yet.
original. Oh, okay.
But yeah, so his original theater group. But then he, with a few others, developed those games into an actual performance, a
Okay.
way of performing. But the games were great for actors because they did the same thing that they did for the kids, what we talked about before, which is create cooperation over competition, create a feeling
Mm.
of connection, ensemble, um, using still imagery, imagination and imagery, becoming spontaneous, developing listening skills, reaction skills, yes and, so accepting, agreeing, accepting, and adding, all the things that, if anybody's taken impro, they call it in Canada, here in the UK as well,
Yeah.
but improvisation. Um, so you can make choices in real time in reality because you've got training in creating real situations out of fake ones or
Out
absurd
of nothing.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that all evolved, all that stuff. Viola Spolin and her team, her group there that were working with children. Her son essentially took all those games, took them to his theater. They were using them to train to just become better actors. It was becoming like a
Hmm.
method. So they were using them as like warm up games and stuff. Same games essentially, and creating more. Those games were so popular and became kind of in and of themselves a performance that Paul Sills and a few others created Second City, the improv theater and troupe.
Very famous.
Very famous. A year later, entered Del Close,
Yep.
who Mark had also talked about. He's kind of a
Yeah.
hero guru of mine as well. Great actor. If you ever seen Untouchables, I can tell you he was the guy who tried to bribe Kevin Costner in the Untouchables. He has a little bit part there, but that's the kind of one place you can see him. But he did a lot of things. He went to San Francisco later and did the Committee and stuff like that, and then came back to Chicago and stuck. But Del Close and Paul Sills, and these guys, they call that the Spolin method, which is basically improv,
Hmm.
which is where, oh man, like Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd,
Yeah.
Bill
Everyone.
Murray, all the original cast of Saturday Night Live,
Mark
um,
Seltzman.
Beltzman,
That spelled. Oh my gosh. Take this
Seltzman.
away. So
No,
no, his name's
too late.
Seltzman. You know what? No, no, no. It's a yes. Your
Okay,
name's
it's
Seltzman. It's
just
Mark Seltzman,
Seltzman
and I'm
now.
German.
Great, there he is. um, so that is essentially the
Okay.
I would call that the Spolin method, but you're referring to it as improv, and this is where I find it's the greatest tool. Not even just for actors. It's a great tool for
Life.
life. Right.
Oh gosh.
You've taken improv.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've taken
Yeah,
plenty of
plenty.
improv classes and done improv shows. Yeah.
The
Very
Alk,
important.
that was it. I think it was the Alk.
Oh
Um,
yeah. And
no,
improv
that was a
comes up.
play. That was a play. Alan Alda was in that. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no,
So
I was just saying that like improv just comes up like even not just as a technique, like you need the ability to just do something new, right? Like make a
right,
different choice,
right,
do it a different way, make a sound for this situation, right? Those are all things that you come up with and you don't prepare, right? That to me, that's what improv right? Like essentially is just like things that you're
Yeah.
creating in the moment.
Yeah, well, life does that to you, right? It
And
throws
that's
all
what life
kinds of
is. Yeah.
curveballs at you, and you got to move with it. You got to know how to
Yeah.
react, and you got to react quickly. And improv teaches this in a way that nothing else ever has that I've found. The games and the environment, and it turns out that if you do it really well, it can be very entertaining to watch.
For
Long
sure.
form improv, which is like the Herald, which
Yep.
Paul Sills started to develop, but Del Close.
Del
Uh,
Close. Yep. And then
he
brought to
he
Upright Citizens.
mastered, yeah, and that even became, that turned in, long form improv turned into sketch comedy, the Saturday Night Live style,
Yeah.
which is in and of itself just a performance. Because here's what's funny about it and what's entertaining about it. It turns out that you can take and create real life people in absurd situations, and there's a real thing happening that's natural and organic. So give me an example. Let's do an improv scene quickly for the folks at home, all right? You'll be the
All right.
audience, and I'll say, okay, can I get a relationship?
Pastor and churchgoer.
Great, pastor and churchgoer. And can I get a location, please? And they call it out to the audience.
A beach.
A beach, perfect. All right, here we go. And there's the scene, right? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden you've got all your actors off stage.
And then two people come on.
Yeah.
And one's like,
Let's do
"Dear
the scene.
Father."
Let's do the scene.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
go for it.
Dear Father, I have sinned. I have eaten a
Excuse
bit of
me,
seed.
pastor.
Mm.
I just was wondering, do you have any sunscreen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is SPF, the Lord's 50, please. Spread the holy Lord
I'm
sunscreen all over your
I'm
body.
so worried about getting sunburned out here.
Yes, that is the devil's way of telling you that you are not putting the Lord's sunscreen on. Do it,
It's
please.
a great idea that you had, bringing the church out here to the beach today.
The people in Bali need to hear
They
the
need
Lord's
Jesus, don't
message.
they? Yeah.
They do.
And you're the one to bring it to them.
It's
You
a
are.
hard life, but an important one,
God bless
and
you.
I'm proud.
And
Thank you.
God bless Jesus. Okay.
God bless Jesus.
God bless Jesus.
Great.
Okay, that was the worst improv scene ever.
Honestly, I loved it. I had a great time.
Yeah, you
I
had
love.
fun. You broke a few rules there, I gotta be honest with you, but that's all right.
Okay. Do everything.
I knew that was gonna upset you. Okay, but break it down. So what happened in the scene? What was that all about?
Oh wait. What?
So one actor jumped on and started playing the pastor right away. Another actor
Well,
jumps in
actually,
and says,
uh-huh.
"Oh, you were being the."
Yeah, dear Father, I have sinned. I had made you the pastor, but then you were like, you called me the pastor, so I was like, great.
Oh,
I'm
okay, I didn't get
joking.
it.
I'm the pastor.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I'm
very
gonna be the
good.
pastor now.
So I missed that. All right, so we ruined the scene, but essentially,
But that's what there's no okay, Todd. There's no ruining in improv. That's the point of it. It's
I
like you
know
say
I'm joking.
yes.
I'm
Oh,
joking.
you are.
I'm just joking. For the audience, I didn't want them to think that we were seriously doing an improv scene. I'm disappointed that I ruined the scene. I didn't realize you were the pastor. Why
It's
did I screw it up?
okay, Hot Toddy.
Okay.
Who cares?
So
It's kind of
the point is that the two actors come in. They play the part. One grabs one role off a suggestion. The other grabs the other role off a suggestion. They both play it naturally that they're on the beach. It's an absurd situation. You have the pastor. You have the churchgoer. And here they are on a beach. Now, what's going to happen between the two? And there's a whole arc and everything that happens there. And there's a lot of rules to improv, even though it seems like there isn't. But what's brilliant about improv in general is that, again, it teaches you to react. It teaches you listening skills. It teaches you that it's an ensemble, that you have to work with others. You can't get on the stage, and there's no point in trying to be funny because you won't be funny. What's funny about it is that you play it so normal that you take the audience with you to this beach, and they start to believe it because you're believing it. And what you get trained in doing is creating that illusion. And I think that translates brilliantly to a performance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
When
improv for
camera,
me
yeah.
is I always study it. I always practice it. I always teach it. in some form or another ever since I started taking it. I was with the Groundlings for years back when I was a youth.
A
Um,
youth.
yeah, and not Second City. I did Upright Citizens Brigade a bit and Improv Olympic, and there's a ton, and there's a lot. There's a lot of improv here in London. There's groups all over the world performing it.
Totally. And it's just fun. It's fun and it's a good way of being like it's just about being happy in my opinion and about like having fun and listening and being with other people and creating things on the spot, which when you do that and you're like listening, creating a thing with other people, like magic happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about magic.
It's great to create with others for sure. Um, and yeah, there's a beautiful thing that happens on there. And of course, I think most of the comedy that we see today, Will Ferrell, Mike Myers, Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, Phoebe from Friends, all the stand up, um, all the Saturday Night Live. If they're not
Yeah,
stand up
like
comedians, they come from improv backgrounds.
improv.
Martin
Yeah.
Short, John Candy. It's just a huge list. If you're interested, North American comedians have had improv training or come from the improv schools, and that's a testament to I think the power of the medium and the technique,
Mm.
and, and the style of theater, the style of performance. So okay, we've banged on that for a while, but I think that's for me that's the pinnacle.
Mm. Yeah.
Others include Bertolt Brecht, Howard Fine. Um, there is Grotowski, Polish. These are little more fringe methods and fringe teachers.
Alexander technique,
So
Linklater
that's
voice technique.
yeah. So those are physical. Now that's physical stuff. Alexander technique is great. I've studied. You know Alexander technique, what that was?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, FM
Have you?
Alexander. He started as a vocalist, and he needed to figure out how to
Mm-hmm.
use his voice better, and that's
Orator,
how he developed it. An
orator,
orator, yes, exactly,
which was a
orator.
thing in the day, a way of performing or whatever, where you get on basically a stage and you spoke to crowds and recite things, and that was kind of a performance way, oration.
Yeah, a
It was
specific
actually a
type.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a specific. You could go from town to town and stand up and put your hat out even and orate prose or some Shakespearean thing or news. They used to do news.
town
I
crier.
bring, yeah, like I bring word from the big city. Here's what's happening. People would gather around and they throw a few tuppence in your hat and whatever. But what he realized was because it was the Victorian era, he everybody's clothes.
Yeah,
Women were wearing corsets. Men were wearing high, stiff-necked, starched shirts and collars, high collars, and his posture became all discontorted. And yeah, he lost his voice. For an orator to lose your voice, that's obviously tragic.
yeah. And then like the whole point is that like a baby can like scream for hours,
Yeah,
and its voice is fine.
yeah,
So it's like, how do we take away the blocks that we've like created in our lives that make it so that we can't like
yeah,
have a
yeah,
free voice?
yeah. Life has crushed us, the posture, and we see it today. The way you sit at the
Life has crushed
computer.
us. Meisner has crushed us. Bad improv
Bad
performances have crushed
improv
us.
crushed us. Oh my God, this whole episode is
Uh,
crushing.
Indeed.
Um, Probably the audience is feeling crushed too. We better wrap
Uh,
it up.
we
We're gonna
better.
have
Yes.
somebody from I want to get some. I studied Alexander technique. There are people that practice and study. I want to get somebody on the show to talk about it.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Alexander, I mean, because it's also used not just in acting.
No, I
Um,
used it when I had physical problems.
yeah, it's
I
very, yeah,
posture and things like that. And tribal women in Africa and other places carry a basket on their head, and it's super. And they move. Animals, apes
animals.
move freely and things like that. Children, like
Yeah,
you said,
a
toddlers get
free
up and move.
spine. They're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Their
yeah.
body does what like their body is supposed to do, but us
Right.
humans are bad at that
Yeah, because of all the societal
because
pressures
of
and things. Yeah,
yeah.
I've taught my daughter, my oldest daughter, Star, had some issues with the posture and things. She grew very fast, and as did I when I was
Mm.
younger. And so I've been teaching her some Alexander technique to
Oh,
practice. It's about
I hope you get a
lengthening and
practitioner.
widening. Lengthening and widening.
Yep.
Because yeah, I took a bunch of
Up and forward.
Alexander,
Yeah. I
bunch
remember.
of courses in Alexander technique, and it's so movement is in and of itself a technique that actors learn and study, which is essentially, and there's a whole lot of the physical technique that goes with it. We'll talk about that more in the future.
Yeah, there's
Um,
a bunch. I mean, yeah, the British way, like honestly, the British schools are less about acting techniques and they're more just about speech,
mm,
movement,
right.
voice,
This
right?
is I would put that under the umbrella of classical,
Yeah, totally.
the
For yeah, yeah,
classical
yeah.
technique.
That's
So
the
that's
classical way.
yeah, the
Yeah.
well-rounded classical, and that's again, I think more well, like you said, that's why the Brits are maybe better at some of it than
I think
others.
there's two different, they're all,
You need to blend,
everyone's just trying to make art here. Everyone's just trying to
yeah,
make
and
art.
find a craft to it and find what works. You need to blend. You just need to blend it. Try it all and see what
Yeah.
works and what doesn't and what works for you. I would never get stuck into one. Like I'm not just stuck in improv anyway. Even though I think it's the best and it works the best for me and I think it's the most significant one. But I've got, like we talked about,
Yeah.
I like
Yep.
Strasbourg. I've got some Alexander technique in there. You've studied the classical stuff. I've studied classical technique.
Yeah.
Um,
So many things. There's so many.
yeah,
Clown, Laban.
Laban.
There's more. There's so
What else you got? What's on the list?
let's see. There's Mask. That's another
Oh
one.
yeah, mask. Yeah,
There's
yeah.
also Michael Chekhov, not to be confused with Anton
The Czech.
Chekhov, who's the writer of
Yeah,
The Seagull.
Mikhail,
Um,
not Michael. Mikhail Chekhov. He's a
Mikhail. I'm sorry.
Mikhail.
Mikhail.
Yeah, it's Russian. Mikhail.
And then we did an
He's the nephew of Anton Chekhov, by the way.
and then
Mikhail.
there's
Mikhail Chekhov. Anton Chekhov wrote The Seagull, The Cherry Orchard. Famous
very
Russian playwright, but his nephew created a Chekhov method. Yeah.
so it is they are related. I never knew
Mm-hmm.
their history. I was always just like the two Chekhovs.
Mm-hmm.
And then at my British school Lambda, we did this movement technique. Oh my gosh, it is very bad. Feldenkrais.
Oh
It's
yeah.
This one's newer. It's very movement based and about very
Mm-hmm.
slow, aware, like awareness of moving, where you literally move your body in infinitesimally slow pace, so that
Yeah.
like you're aware of every muscle that is doing everything in order to make one little thing move.
Mm-hmm.
Quite the
Yeah,
That's
it's
another technique.
intense. Yeah. I'm gonna get
I
a friend of
I
mine
liked it.
on that does that as well. To talk about Feldenkrais. Actually, that's
And
one
that's
of the
another
things.
one that like that's a non-actor one too, that like you can do non-actors can better their like physical health with Feldenkrais.
Right. Yeah, like
Um,
Alexander technique. Yeah, similar.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think like Linklater, which is a voice technique, like I think this is something that is often used in like, business people learn
Mm,
this
mm-hmm.
Linklater and like in order to use their voice and connect to their
Mm-hmm.
that's voice embody, right?
Yeah.
Embodying your voice.
Yeah.
There's so many, there's a lot.
What technique do
Um
you think are you attracted to or use?
They all have their own uses. I really, at this moment you're asking me, I am most curious about mask. I miss my mask class. And there was
You
a
want to
lot of
explain what that is
amazing work.
briefly? Tell the
Mask
audience.
using putting on a mask, right? Like, and there's a lot of very
A
traditional
physical,
masks,
real physical mask.
a real life mask, and the
Mm-hmm.
mask will look a different way. There's a lot of archetypal masks that make
Yeah.
you look a certain way according to a very long tradition of
Mm-hmm.
masks. There's an Italian commedia dell'arte,
Mm-hmm.
which is so this is old, but anyway, the whole point is you put on a mask and then you kind of have the spirit of the mask and you improvise. You
Yeah.
like someone maybe asks you questions or you move the space, but having a mask over your head kind of like hides you and it lets you like kind of speak and move in like a weird way that you might not normally do. And often people really show up and people really like express and use a crazy part of their voice or a crazy like move their body in way different ways that you would never have expected that person to ever do.
Mm.
So that's right now that's what I'm curious about. But like I think they all have their own their own meat, right? Their own use.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah, I
And
agree.
they're all really about learning about how different people work, right? Like it's all just like different brains, like you're kind of just learning different brains. You're learning this is how this brain works. This person does this. Oh, this is another brain, right? You're just
Mm.
like you're taking on different ways of doing things. And that's all just I think they're all fun. If you can make them fun, I'll like it. Mask is fun.
Yeah, mask is fun. Yeah, movement is
And
fun too for me.
I like movement
Um,
too. Yeah.
yeah, all this stuff. I think in general, advice to audience: get out there and try it all. Get a taste
Facts.
for everything,
Yes.
and find what you like and what works for you. If you haven't already been exposed to a full classical theater education that has been well rounded and given you access to all these different techniques and styles, look into it. Get Uta Hagen's book. Get Lee Strasberg. Get the books. Get the Keith Johnstone book on impro.
Keith Johnstone, great book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll put them in the show notes. Yeah. All
Oh
the
my
kind
gosh, these are going to be long show notes, but yes, let's do it.
Nah,
We
just the
can make them
books.
show notes.
We'll do.
Just the books.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
do.
great.
Well, we haven't
The
talked about anything
important
else.
ones.
Yeah, we've talked the few books that from these. Uta Hagen's was it on an actor? No,
Oh,
Respect
on
for
acting.
acting. Respect for acting. No, Uta Hagen is Respect for Acting, and the other one was On Acting. Anyway,
Ooh.
Michael Caine wrote a great book too. Check out Michael Caine's book. Let's put that in the show notes. Michael
Oh.
Caine. Michael Caine. He's
Okay.
got it. He's got his. I think it's Acting for Film. That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's not really a
that's
technique,
right.
but if we're going into books right now, yeah, that was always a book that was on the actor's bookshelf.
I don't know if you ever did this at our school. We did Boleslavsky, the first
Oh yeah,
6 lessons.
sure,
That's
Boleslavsky.
a really classic.
Yeah,
That's like
I'm
that
glad you
people don't
brought that
talk
up.
about, but everyone's read.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up as a. I think we've hit them all.
I think we've hit.
We haven't missed a single technique. Wow.
And if we've missed one, please write to us, put it in the show notes,
In the show notes,
or
we'll do a whole episode around.
comment on it.
Yeah. Hey, you missed my technique, the Billy Bob Johnson technique.
Oh,
How to
no.
be an actor. I don't know why I
How
always
to
do redneck.
be an actor.
Hey, I got a technique. I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna write it down in the comments. Nothing against Southern people from the southern part of America. If you have an acting technique of your own, then write about it. Tell us.
Send us your draft. Send us your copy. We'll
Send us your
review it.
copy and $812, and we'll do a whole episode on it for you.
$812. That's right.
Yeah, $406 each.
That's right.
It's my credit card bill right now, so I gotta.
I see.
Got some debts to pay.
You really pulled that off. 816. That's all your debt. Great.
I know. Yeah,
I have
now I'm
60K.
rolling.
Oh God.
60K.
Yeah. Let's not talk about it.
Is that your fancy theater education?
Yeah, I have
to pay for?
60K.
Dear
It's
God.
going up at every moment.
Oh Lordy, that's a whole episode.
And also that's compared
you
to
hope-
others. That's nothing.
Oh, my
People have even way more. Yeah. Yeah.
Dear God.
I'm
Jay.
surprised it took us this long even to get to this point.
get to that. Jeez, and it's
Yeah.
at the end of the show. Were you
Yeah.
hoping Biden would sign it all off?
Oh my. Actually, when I first
Come
heard
on,
about
Joe.
that,
Come on,
I
Joe.
was like, no way. I mean, whatever. Listen, we all
Wipe
die
my
at the end.
debt.
So if I die with debt or without debt, I'm still dead. So
I'll give you some tips on how to deal with your debt after the show.
fantastic.
Okay, seriously.
Great.
Good stuff, buddy. There it is. Acting techniques, offstage acting techniques, if you will.
Mhm.
Jay,
Will.
well prepared. Really appreciate you. And good topic, I think. I'm
think
sorry I said you were terrible at Meisner and improv.
I'm sorry I
not.
failed everything that you said.
No, you did brilliantly. I love you. Take care. We'll see you next time. Offstage Acting Podcast.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so now you know the basics of how we actors cheat our way into the hearts and minds of our audiences. Will you ever be able to watch a movie again? Probably. And if you're looking to learn more about acting, techniques, or indeed how to become a professional actor yourself, head on over to our website for more information. In addition to this podcast, we offer classes, courses, coaching, and a lot more acting resources for you to discover at offstageacting.com, where we take you from passion to profession.